This is the lower body calibration protocol for human movement method. This is going to be in 3 phases. As you work through the 3 phases, our goal is to first release the main areas that need to be loosened in order to lower discomfort and postural dysregulation. Then in phase 2, we are going to mobilize that tissue by doing certain movements. And then in phase 3, we are going to activate the things that are too long to shorten them. So what we're trying to do is make the long things short and the short things long throughout this process. But it's a process that we refer to as release it, mobilize it, and activate it. And typically what you do for the first 1 to 4 weeks is work solely on the release portion. Then for the next 1 to 4 weeks, you do release and mobilize. And then for the next 1 to 4 weeks, you do release, mobilize, and activate. And then once you move into the strength training phase, you do them as needed. This is a follow-along video, so I will be timing everything for you. And the tools that we're going to need to do this entire process is a foam roller, a yoga block, either this kit, which you can find on humanmovementmethod.com under the equipment section. We call it the ball kit, but it's called Posture Magic. You can get these on Amazon. If you don't have that kit specifically, you can typically get by with a golf ball, a lacrosse or a tennis ball, and if this golf ball, if that's too hard, you can use a bouncy ball. And we are also going to need a loose band of some kind, of light band for a certain amount of mobilization. So each one of the releases that we are going to do is going to be held for 1 minute. 90 seconds to 3 minutes can be done for any one of these, so you can pause the video if you would like to focus on an area. But we're going to start in phase 1, the release portion, and we're going to go through each one of these. Now, basically, this particular protocol is a combination of something known as lower cross syndrome or lumbar lordosis, where the lower back is sticking out like this and putting a lot of pressure on the discs. It often comes from tension in the front of the hips. And high hip pathology, which is where you've got one hip that's higher than the other, and that normally comes out in one side of the body being short. And so most people think the high shoulder is the high hip, but in reality, the hip is high and the shoulder is low because this side is tight. When you put those two together, it causes spiral problems. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to either take a spiky ball, which you will find in your Posture Magic bag, or we're going to use a golf ball. If you don't have either of those things, you can just use a lacrosse ball. I'm going to use a golf ball. And what we're going to do is start by rolling through the bottom of our foot, looking for hot spots. This is not aggressive or fast. It is a slow, methodical movement, looking for hot spots. Now, go ahead and look through the bottom of your foot, looking for those hot spots. I am starting the timer. We're going to do this for a minute. And ideally, what we want to do is look for pain points and hot spots and just massage them a bit. The goal here is to hydrate the tissue and bring blood flow into the tissue and wake up the nervous system in that area by making contact so that the brain is mapping that area more accurately. This also helps lower inflammation by increasing circulation, and it increases the flexibility of the tissue, the fascia, by hydrating it. Imagine if you had a sponge in a plastic bag and you filled it with water and you rolled a ball across that. That's kind of what happens to your fascia when you roll it, is you push out the old water and bring in new fresh water. We're going to go ahead and switch feet and start on the other side. Now, pay close attention to which foot is a little bit more sensitive, or possibly even which foot you have more feeling in. There are people that have neuropathy or lower back issues, and you may actually have a different state of sensation in the bottom of your feet. If you're a person that's had plantar fasciitis or currently have plantar fasciitis, this will also be very sensitive. So stay inside your frame of tolerance. And what that means is do not put so much pressure on the tissue that you find yourself wincing, forgetting to breathe, sweating, any of that. We're trying to remove tension. We're trying to equalize tension in the body because you don't remove tension from the body. We're trying to equalize the tension in the body. And we don't want to do that by just moving tension somewhere else because we're flinching to guard. More pain is not better. This is not a situation where we're making it more uncomfortable. It's going to be more beneficial. So we're going to go ahead and come off of feet. And next we're going to grab our foam roller. We're going to lay it on the ground. And we're going to sit down. We're going to place the ball of our calf here, the upper portion, on the roller. We are going to stack the other foot on top of that. And we're just going to wiggle our foot side to side, like so. And we're just going to massage this tissue in the calf for a minute, allowing that to release. And remember, when we're doing soft tissue work, this is true, real self-care. The human body is built for touch and movement. Touch and movement are really good for the human body. So self-massage is a way that you can help take care of yourself physically, but also mentally and emotionally. This can be time where you can kind of down-regulate, relax a little bit. If you're doing this while trying to flip through your phone, you may find that you don't release your musculature as well. This is a great time to focus on breathing. Let your mind unwind. It's kind of like almost moving meditation. You can pay attention to what thoughts come up, but you don't necessarily need to engage with them. What you need to be doing right now is making mindful contact with your body, learning what parts feel a certain way, which areas need care and rest. Go ahead and switch sides. And paying close attention. We're going to now stack on the other side and wiggle. This is about checking in with yourself and learning where you're at today versus yesterday. I appreciate the investment of your time and your energy, but I'm also going to ask you to invest your awareness and your focus and try not to be distracted by outside things right now and spend this time learning what's different today than yesterday. And without judgment. Notice I'm not saying what's better, what's worse. I'm saying what's different. Because you need a large data set, a lot of experience, to learn whether or not you are moving along in the direction that you want, or if you're not moving in the direction that you want. And if you're not moving in the direction that you want, this is a good time to be mindful about what have you been doing that may be moving you in that direction, and what have you been doing that may not be moving you in that direction. Because it really is about your goals, not good or bad or some arbitrary measurement. So now we're going to take our roller and we're going to roll the front of our shins, but not directly. On the inside of my shin, there is a bone. On the outside of my shin, there is a muscle. This is called the anterior tibialis. I am going to place my shin on the roller. I am going to rock my hip over so that I'm on the outside of my shin, and I'm going to apply my body weight while moving up and down on the anterior tibialis. So we're going to go ahead and start our timer. You're going to get set to do that. And we're just going to very slowly work our way through, up and down. Again, staying inside frame of tolerance. I want to make sure that I'm not digging into an area so thoroughly that it's painful. I want to take my time and work through that area, being mindful of where the hot spots are. These are called trigger points. I also want to pay close attention to what the sensations feel like. Is there burning? Is there tingling? Is it just soreness? Is there nothing? Is it actually quite comfortable? And if it is comfortable, do I need to do it? No, you don't need to do it, but it's probably a good idea to keep it comfortable and not wait until it gets bad. Just because an area isn't tight doesn't mean it's not part of the overall system. And you'll notice that below the knee, we work on the foot and the calf. Go ahead and switch sides. But above the knee, we're going to primarily focus on the front of the thigh. Now we're going to put our shin on there, rock to the outside of the shin, and work our way up and down. And then once we get above the hip joint, we're going to focus on the back. Because typically with lower cross, the short things are in the front, below the hip joint, and the short things are in the back, above the hip joint. So the long things that need to be shorter, below the hip joint, are in the back. So we need to strengthen those. And above the hip joint, in the front. So we need to strengthen that too. Which is actually, I'll be honest, is a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Misleading, because technically your hip flexors are on the anterior side of your spine, the front of your spine, and they're a huge part of the problem, and they don't need to get stronger. They're already short enough. Really what needs to happen is your glutes need to get stronger, your hamstrings need to get stronger, and actually your feet need to get stronger, because a lot of your leg stability comes from your big toe, and many of us have very poor foot strength and dexterity because of a lifetime of wearing shoes. Now we're going to go ahead and focus on the quadricep, or the front of the thigh. We're going to roll from the top of the knee up to about where our pocket is. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to get myself on my knee and my elbows like so. I'm going to set the roller just above my knee, and I'm going to roll nice and easy back and forth and look for hot spots and areas. Now I can pause on a hot spot and roll in that area, or I can just keep doing long strides. But again, I want you actively involved and thinking about, okay, where do I feel this? Can I turn my legs slightly out? Should I turn my legs slightly in? Should I, but again, focus on the front of the thigh. You know, this is an active process, meaning it's a process you participate in. It is not a process that is done to you. It is a process that you personally and mindfully go through. And a big part of that is learning about your own body. And if that's not of interest, that's okay. But I may not be a great guide for you because I really believe it's important that you connect with and learn about your own body. Go ahead and switch sides. In fact, a lot of muscular dysfunction and chronic pain comes from poor neurological function, which comes from a lack of awareness. Go ahead and place the front of just above the knee on the other side, and then we're going to roll back. And a lot of the time in life, when we encounter something that's extremely uncomfortable and we don't understand it and we feel powerless to do anything about it, that is a state of trauma. That makes a situation traumatic, which is different than understanding the problem, knowing what tools we have to deal with it, and knowing that it's within our power to at least do something. That gives us a bit more agency in our life. So whether we're talking about physical discomfort or personal problems, the difference between feeling powerless and having no tools and being able to feel like we have something going for us can really change how we view a situation. So I'm very much going to try to actively get you to mentally participate in understanding the situation and then knowing what tools you can use, and then teaching you how to use them. So we've done both fronts of the thighs. Now we're going to take our roller, and we're going to go to where my pocket is here. And where the pocket is, I'm going to place my hip on that section. I'm going to lay my other arm down, and I'm going to be at kind of an angle here. Now, I'm not twisting my body. What I'm actually doing is I'm going to be kind of rocking side to side or up and down right below the bony portion of the pelvis here. So I'm going to be from about here to here. And I'm going to lay that pocket section there, and kind of, I can put my knee down or I can put my foot down. But what I'm doing is I'm just rolling on that area, trying to loosen up that kind of front 45 of the hip. So find that position, and we're going to start and do 1 minute on there. We can also roll forward, backward over there. Now, there's not really a lot of muscle in there, but there is a lot of connective tissue. And that connective tissue tends to be quite short given the modern Western lifestyle, meaning we sit a lot, basically from infancy on. So that may not have historically been true for all people on like an evolutionary scale, but it is certainly true for most people now. And the shortening of that tissue in the front makes it difficult to get the pelvis into a neutral position, which is one of the reasons we wind up with lower cross syndrome. Another reason is chronic stress. We have these muscle systems called phasic and tonic muscle systems, and our tonic muscle systems are built into our fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. Switch sides. And when we are overwhelmed and overloaded on a neurological level, those muscles like to tighten up first. And they do that because your body actually wants to pull itself into the fetal position, because that's a defensive position. So emotional and mental stress can feel like an impending physical threat or danger, and will activate these defensive muscle systems called tonic structures, and they will shorten. Well, then we activate our phasic muscle systems, which develop later in life, post-utero, and we force ourselves into a standing position, and we force ourselves into these other positions, and those two muscle systems start fighting each other. And when they start fighting each other is when we get chronic misalignment, poor biomechanics, and chronic muscle and joint pain, because those two systems are at odds with each other. And that can happen around injury, that can happen around trauma, that can happen because of neuromuscular communication issues, that can happen because of inflammation. All of these things are not singular, but they can all affect each other. So controlling those factors is as much as you can really, really helps. All right, so we've done the TFL, tensor fasciolatum. Now, so this will be a little different. This one's for the hip flexors. Now, if you don't have the ball kit, you may need a ball slightly larger than a lacrosse ball. So I'm going to use this big ball here. If you don't have a big ball, what you can do is try to put a small ball on a yoga block like that and lean into it, although it's not going to get as deep. It is an option. You can try to get right inside the ASIS. So we're going to find this bony point of the pelvis in the front. I'm going to take the ball. I'm going to put the ball there. I'm going to roll in an inch and down an inch just inside my pelvis. Now from there, what I'm going to do is I am going to have the ball on the side of my straight leg, and then the other knee is going to be bent. I'm going to start by laying flat on the ground and focusing on breathing into this and letting it release into the ground. If that's bearable and I'm inside frame of tolerance, I can bring my chest up like so and focus on the same thing. All I'm doing is breathing into my diaphragm. Find the position. I'm going to start the timer. Go. I'm just going to breathe into my diaphragm and try to let that release. And I'm not like aggressively rolling on it. I'm just letting it chill there. This is a basic trigger point release. And if I feel the discomfort move around, I'm going to move around with it. The key is that if I feel like a deep visceral burning pain in my abdomen, you might be too deep or too inside the pelvis. We want to just be tracing the outer edge, kind of right along the outside of the pelvis, but in the pelvic bowl. So breathe in, let out, and just let that release. You notice I'm moving around slightly, maybe an inch here or there, because I feel the tension moving around, so I'm following it. Again, I'm actively participating in the process and not just following directions arbitrarily and not engaging in it. All right, go ahead and come off of there. We're going to switch sides. Roll, find a tension point, roll into position, kick the knee out to the side, and remember, you can either lay flat or be upright. If you want to add another element, you can side bend away from, so the knee that's up, that side's elbow goes down, and I have a long side and a short side. Those of you that have worked with me for a long time understand that this is a constantly reoccurring theme, because it is. And again, I'm just going to focus on breathing on this one, because that's what I need to do, is focus on breathing on this one. And again, we're above the joint now, so we're focusing on the front, because the hip flexors kind of run from below the joint to above the joint. They go from the inside of your femur up through your pelvis and attached to your lumbar spine from the front side of the spine. All right, go ahead and come off of there. And so they really determine pelvic position. All right, now we're going to do glutes. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to grab our lacrosse ball, and we are actually going to roll against the wall. So in this case, I'm going to use my wardrobe. I'm just going to take the ball. I'm going to place it right here where the big part of my glute is. And I'm going to push at kind of a 45-degree angle. And I'm going to do this little shimmy where I'm looking for hot spots, and I'm trying to find areas that feel tight. Your glutes are really important for your lower back. They are lower back stability. So we really want to roll through there. We can roll through the lower side. We can roll through the upper area just below the belt region, kind of to the outside. The maximus is the big part here, but the medius is up here, and both are really important. So I know I'm only timing for a minute, but you can pause the video and hunt around in here and look for a lot of areas. The key on that is don't work this stuff so hard that you wind up feeling bruised. That's too much. Even if you can take it, it's not helping the tissue. We're trying to calm down inflammation, not create inflammation, and that would be very inflammatory to the body. So let's not do that. All right, go ahead and switch sides. Now we're going to go to the other hip. Notice I'm shifting my body angularly because I'm applying pressure with the outside foot. Now this is definitely not the last time you're going to see this video, so there's probably going to be a point at which you can literally repeat every word for word. And that's good, because it means you know everything you need to know. And eventually you won't need the video. You will know this process so well that when you don't feel well, you'll be like, oh, I feel better when I do X. Or, oh, I tend to have hot spots in this place. I've been working these techniques for over a decade, and I probably still do specific soft tissue work for me personally every single day. And I do that because I have injuries that chronically tend to have trigger points around them. That doesn't mean I move better and feel better and have a freer life than I've had in a long time, but I also respect my limitations and I take care of myself. I went through a phase in my life where I abused my body and expected it to do everything I told it because it was mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter, and that's just not true. Your body will scream until it gets what it needs, and if it has to scream very, very, very loudly, it will. So take the time to listen now. It's helpful. Now we're going to do the obliques. Now, the obliques are not in the front or the back, but they are on the side. They're between the ribs and the pelvis. So what we're going to do is take our roller. We're going to lay it on the ground. We are going to stack our knees on top of one another and lay sideways on the roller. And we're going to roll forward to like maybe slightly back and just rock the torso. I'm not twisting my torso. You can see my hips are moving, but I have support like this. And I'm just going to rock forward, backward, massaging that very large muscle on the side. Again, not everything should be painful. Pain is not a great marker of progress. There's something in the fitness industry where no pain, no gain. And so it's become this way of thinking for people that if it doesn't hurt, it's not effective. And that's kind of ridiculous. There can be discomfort that is a side effect of certain techniques. But as Tom Myers once said, the difference between pain and discomfort is the intention to retreat. So if you find yourself in the mental or emotional position where you want to retreat, you have two options: lower the intensity or remove the intention to retreat. And you will notice that you emotionally deal with it differently. The desire to explore a discomfort is part of growth, where the desire to, I would say, confront and overcome it by trying to use pain as a method for eliminating it is actually going to reinforce the same problem. Switch sides. So engaging with discomfort is very different than trying to defeat pain or defeat discomfort through pain. They're really different things. So if you have certain sensations, remember that you have control over how much pressure you place on those areas, and you also have a certain amount of influence over how you engage with this mentally. Are you in a place of retreat, or are you in a place of curiosity and exploration and wanting to learn and understand more? Because those are going to be keys in this phase one releasing period. You really want to learn how these things feel so that you can check in with it. Because when we get to the mobilizing and activating phases, as well as into the strength training later, the better you know your body, the more effectively you are going to be able to progress, and the more you are going to get out of the time that you put in. Time is not your only investment. Time is not your only investment. It requires energy, it requires focus, it requires reflection, it requires a lot of those things. All right. Now the last technique is going to be, we're going to be doing a thoracolumbar fascia release technique. And you can either use a golf ball, a bouncy ball, or this little thing I like to call the nugget. And the nugget is great for this because it really helps you find hot spots. The nugget in general is really good for finding small hot spots. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to tuck in my shirt so you can see this. I am going to place my ball somewhere between, so I've got the upper portion of my pelvis, that's a bony part. I have the lower bottom of my ribs, also a bony part, and I have my spine, also a bony part. The nugget or the ball does not go on the bony parts. It goes on the soft parts. So I'm going to focus on the spinal erectors on each side of the spine, and maybe even out into this kind of divot lumbar area here. what I'm going to do is start at the top or the bottom. I'm going to lay on my back with my feet flat on the ground. I'm going to rock to one side and place the ball or the nugget into an area. Once I'm there, I'm going to pick my knee up and I'm going to rock toward that ball or nugget, on and off. I'm not, again, aggressively rolling. I'm just looking for hot spots and I'm moving around that area. So we're going to spend, I would say, 3 minutes on each side. And I would recommend that you at least give an area 3 to 5 rocks before you move on to a new area. I often see people think that if it doesn't hurt, there's no reason to do this. And that's just not true. Or if I don't have a strong sensation, it's unimpressive and therefore not necessary. And again, I do not believe that that is true. Because you may have one side that's fairly unremarkable feeling, but it is definitely a contributor. And this kind of contact helps muscle function, proprioception. These are all words for unconscious motor control. Stuff my body does, very similar to like breathing and blinking. They're things that I can get control of if I consciously pay attention to them. But I spend about 99.9% of my life not thinking about them and doing them automatically. And so we want to bring some of that stuff online and really become more aware of those feelings and learn where we hold tension. Sometimes it's interesting to see how certain events or certain experiences change how your body holds tension. That can be a fascinating self-exploration. We're about half done. So understand that there is no separation between the body and what we call the mind. Your consciousness, in my humble opinion, is just your experience of having a body and how you interpret that experience. So I highly recommend making friends with your body, because again, it's going to scream at you if you don't. And we don't always get along with our friends all the time. Sometimes there's arguments. But conflict resolution typically leads to better outcomes. And so if your body's been screaming at you for a while, maybe it's time to start considering some different ways of communicating. We're just going to work through this area. We're almost done, probably about 30 seconds. Yeah, 31 seconds. We're just going to keep rocking and then we'll switch sides. Now remember, this is our last technique in phase 1. So if you are in phase 1, you're going to stop the video here. Next, we're going to go into mobilization. That's going to be phase 2. And if you are in phase 2, good, you will continue until the end of phase 2. All right, come on off of there. Now we're going to switch sides. I start at the top because that's where I tend to have one of my old injuries. So I'm going to pull my knee up. And this is for me personally, my hotter side. Normally I start with the hotter side, but it's not facing the camera right now, so get the idea. And by the way, you can always put this on closed caption and play music over it. You don't have to listen to me every time. But again, you do kind of have to pay attention. It's an important part. So remember, you're just working your way down. Don't go on the bony parts. Keep the knee up. And also, if you're the type of person that has hip impingement, avoid pulling your knee straight to your chest in a way that's going to cause pinching here. You can hold your knee off to the side and not engage in the same way. And remember, release techniques
open up a window for better mechanics. But that window stays open maybe 48 hours to 72 hours. Once the effect is worn off, you'll have to go back and do the release techniques again, which is why we combine this with mobilization and activation, because we're going to get better motor patterns long term if we combine the release techniques with the mobilizations and the activations. Otherwise, you're just stuck rolling all the time, and you're not going to make a lot of progress like that. So you got to work through it. Now, that doesn't mean the hot spots are going to go away. What we're looking for is your perceived discomfort level. We want to get you to the point where your day-to-day, you know where the spots are, but they're not impeding your lifestyle. They're not weighing on you emotionally. They're not causing you anxiety. They're not stealing energy from your life. We want to get to where that's not happening. And that also comes out as back pain, joint pain, exhaustion, all kinds of things. So once you've gotten to the point where, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt, a 1 being a sensation without any real discomfort, if you're living below a 5, then it's time to move on to mobilization. And then if you find that you do mobilization and, you have an acute 24 or 48 hours of soreness again, and then it dies back down, great. That's exactly where we want you. Once you get to the point where that's no longer occurring in a really uncomfortable way, then that's when we then move on to the activation phase, and that process will repeat. So this concludes phase 1. You can stop the video here. If you're moving on to phase 2, that's what we're doing next. So let's go ahead and set these things off to the side. We are going to now focus on movement techniques, mobilizations, that are going to help us open that tissue up now that it's all hydrated, and the glide, which is the layers moving over the top of each other, we want to increase that glide. So the first thing we're going to do is lower trunk rotations. We're going to lay on our back with our feet flat on the floor and our palms up. We're going to try to lay our shoulder blades flat on the ground. We're going to bring our knees up, and we're going to let our knees fall to one side, controlling the fall, looking the opposite direction, keeping both shoulders down. Then I'm going to come back to center and go to the opposite side and let the knees fall and the shoulders stay down. So I'm going to go side to side like that. We're going to do 10 repetitions. So we're going to go 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Very good. Now we're going to go up to a hands and knees position, and we're going to do a movement I like to call the wiggle. The way the wiggle works is we are trying to side bend our spine, opening up each side and stretching along the outside. So I'm going to turn my feet one way, and I'm going to look over my shoulder at my feet. Then I'm going to turn my feet the other way and look over the shoulder at my feet. Now what you can see when I do that is my spine side bends, and this side is long and the other side is short. So I'm going to go 1, 1. We're going to do 10 of these. 2, 2, 3, 3, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10. Very good. Now we're going to do a movement I like to call the seesaw. The seesaw is where I'm going to start in child's pose. I can have my feet down or my feet up, whichever works for you. I'm going to try to sit as far back as I can with my arms long. I am going to roll through, squeezing my glutes, and then presenting my chest forward with my back in an arch, and my eyes are going to look straight ahead, not up. So I want to look straight ahead, shoulder blades rolled back, and then I'm going to push back into child's pose. So we're going to do that motion as a pumping action for the spine. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Excellent. So now we're going to do what I like to call the cobra twist, or the twisted cobra. I'm going to go back into child's pose. I'm going to rock forward into this position. I'm going to squeeze my glutes. And now we're going to essentially combine the wiggle and the cobra position. So I'm going to go 1, 1, 2. So I'm looking over my shoulders, side bending in this position. 2, 3, 3. My hips are going to rock. 4, 4. And this really helps traction my back. 5, 5. And side bend at the same time. 6, 6, 7, 7. I want to make sure my shoulders aren't up by my ears. 8, 8. Because I'm pushing down into the ground. 9, 9, 10, 10. And if you're a person that has a really hard time with your hands in that position, I highly recommend either getting stands, being on your fists, but definitely if you look at my hand here, you can see all the pressure is going there. I do not put pressure across this part of my hand when I'm there. The pressure goes on the heel of my palm. And I do that by cupping my hand against the ground and providing support with my hand. Do not put pressure here. That's your thumb joint. You don't put pressure there. You put it right there on the heel of your palm. All right, now we're going to do one more movement, which we're going to do standing. I call the side bend. What we're going to do is we're going to have our arm up against the wall here. We'll use this here. So my arm's going to be against the wall at shoulder level, so not high, shoulder level. I'm going to walk out so that I'm leaning onto the wall. My weight is on the wall. I'm going to take my outside foot and I'm going to cross in front. I'm going to make this leg straight and I'm going to make sure my hips are square. This arm is going to come up and I'm going to pull my elbow toward my pelvis as I side bend away from the wall, toward the wall. So I'm going to side bend and then come back. 1, side bend, and I'm pulling this down. 2, side bend. 3, and I'm leaning my head as well. Side bend. 4, side bend. 5, side bend. 6, side bend. 7, side bend. 8, elbows going to pelvis. Side bend. 9, side bend. 10. Then I'm going to switch sides. So now I'm going to lean my arm up against the wall, walk my feet away, take the outside leg, cross it over in front, roll my hips forward. I feel tension on this hip. Apparently I'm tight here today. I'm going to take this elbow and pull that way. 1, pull. 2, pull. 3, pull. 4, pull.
5, pull, 6, pull, 7, pull, 8, pull, 9, pull, 10. And that concludes phase 2, which is the mobilize it portion. We're focusing primarily on the functions of the spine: rotation, flexion, extension, and side bending. If you are done with phase 2, if phase 2 is where you're at, go ahead, you can pause the video or turn it off here. If you're at phase 3, we're going to continue on into the activation phase. So from here, the first thing that we're going to do in phase 3 is work on a basic clamshell. So the best way to do a simple clamshell is we take our block, we're going to lay on our side, placing the block below our head so that way we don't have to support our head. We're going to put our hand on our hip like this so we can feel if our hip is rolling forward, backward. And with our feet lined up with our tailbone, we are simply going to tuck the pelvis and bring the knee up and lower it back down. We're going to do 10 to 15 of these. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice I'm not rocking like this. 7, 8, 9. I can even place my hand here to make sure my glute's firing. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Excellent. Now we're going to go ahead and switch sides. So I'm going to turn all the way around. All you have to do is turn over and reposition. So heels are in line with tailbone, hands on hip, block is under my head. I'm going to extend up and then lower back down. 1, 2, 3, keeping the pelvis tucked. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. My feet were slightly out of position. 11. That's why I repositioned. 12, 13, 14, 15. Very good. So if you would like to do 2 more sets of that, feel free. If you have the time, if you're going to move along to the next thing, also good. What we're going to do here is take our block. We are going to place it just off the wall at arm's length. We're going to put 1 foot on the block, keeping this knee straight, ideally trying to keep it pointed ahead as best we can. I am going to lower my hip and raise my hip, keeping my weight over the outside foot that's supporting me. So I'm going to go down, up, 1, down, up, 2, down, up, 3, down, up, 4, down, up, 5, down, up, 6, down, up, 7, down, up, 8, down, up, 9, up, 10, up. And notice I'm under control. I'm not dropping or throwing my weight around. 11, I'm trying to stay in control. 12, 13, 14, 15. I'm also using this arm very little. Other side. Down, up. And I want to imagine squeezing this muscle up so it stretches on the way down, up, and I'm squeezing it on the way up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Awesome. So if you'd like to do 2 more sets of 10 to 15, feel free to pause the video here and complete those sets. Now we're going to move on to a roller or tiptoe bridge. Let me explain what that means. Our goal here is to get high level activation out of our feet, glutes, and hamstrings. That's the stuff in the back that needs to be tightened to help our pelvis stay in proper alignment. So I can either get on the balls of my feet, like so, pressing down and squeezing my glutes up, or I can place my feet on a roller, pressing down and squeezing up. In both cases, the key here is I need to be able to manage my pelvis, and it needs to look like a squeeze, not a jerk. So what I'm going to do is tuck my pelvis so my lower back is flat on the ground, and it's going to stay in that position. I'm going to squeeze my glutes up. Now here, you'll notice I'm not all the way up. I just came up high enough. I want to stay inside a frame of tolerance, meaning if I'm encountering pain in a certain position, first I'm going to make sure that I've got my pelvis tucked. Then I'm going to try to only move inside a frame of tolerance where I'm not in pain. So if that means I come up off the ground 1 inch, great, that's what you're doing. If that means I can get all the way up here and all the way down and there's no problem, great, that's what you're doing. So explore and try to open that loci of motion over time, not all at once. But the key is squeezing and releasing, not jerking and dropping, okay? So we're gonna do 10 to 15 of these. I'm gonna keep it at 10. If you wanna go past that, feel free. If you'd like to do 2 more sets at the end, pause the video and do that. So we're gonna squeeze and lower. That's 1. Pelvis is flat, lower back is flat. Squeeze, lower. Notice I don't have tension in my neck or my arms or anything. If you want to add a fun little extra, you can just stick your hands out like this so you know you're not jamming anything into the ground. 4, coming back down. You notice I'm repositioning each time because it feels different. 5, and I'm trying to get as balanced and neutral as I can. 6, 7, and I don't want to put tension where it doesn't belong. The tension should be in my feet, hamstrings, and glutes. 8, 9, 10. If you'd like to go to 15, go to 15. If you'd like to pause the video here and do 2 more sets, please do that. It will only benefit you. Now, we're going to do 2 more exercises for our feet. Why our feet? Because so much of our knee and hip and back stability comes from our big toes. So what we're going to do is a movement I like to call the wall press. And for this, I'm actually going to move my yoga mat out of the way. 1, so you can see my feet clearly. And 2, because it's going to be in the way. So I'm going to use the wardrobe in this case. What I'm going to do is place my forearms on the wall low enough that I can bend both knees like so. I'm going to push hard in my front foot, and I'm going to let my back heel lower. I'm going to tuck my pelvis and push into the wall with my back foot raising, and then I'm going to lower. But I'm keeping the pressure. My rear foot has my big toe pointed straight ahead, and I'm keeping the pressure on the ball of the big foot primarily. So I'm going to go 1 and lower. 2 and lower. 3, tucking my pelvis at the same time, lower. 4, and you notice my leg is not straight, I have a slight bend in my knee. 5, lower, 6, lower, and the front foot keeps the ball of the foot engaged. 7, 8, 9, one more, 10, and lower. Then I'm going to switch, making sure I'm matching positions. And I'm going to push up, tucking the pelvis, raising the heel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. Again, we're squeezing, not jerking. If you'd like to do 2 more sets of those, please pause the video here and complete 2 more sets. Now we're going to move on to the side press. So I'm going to take my block, I'm going to place it on the wall between my shoulder and the wall. My feet are going to be out to the side. The inside leg is going to have very little pressure on it. With my arms in front, I'm going to raise my heel, keeping the pressure primarily on the ball of my foot, and then lower it. So I'm going to come up, down, and I'm putting pressure into the wall the whole time. 2, down, 3, down, 4, and I have a soft bend in my knee. 5, meaning it's not straight, it's not really heavily bent. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And notice again, I am squeezing, not jerking. So I'm going to press into the block. Foot's going to be out to the side, but pointed straight ahead. Ball of this foot up. 1, lower. 2, lower. 3, lower. 4, lower. 5, lower. 6, lower. 7, lower. 8, lower. 9, lower. 10, lower. If you would like to do 2 more sets of that, you can pause the video here and do that. So that is the end of phase 3. If you have completed the entire video, you'll most likely be doing the whole process for 1 to 4 weeks. Pay close attention, not just to doing the reps, but how you do them. Seeing this video multiple times is going to help drill home the important pieces. If you have any questions, obviously get in touch with me in person. And if we've come up with any modifications in the meantime, please put those in place where they belong. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully this is feeling good and only going to get better over time. I look forward to working on the upper half with you in the future.